Hi, welcome to LearnEx Academy. Today we're going to talk about the IELTS, and we will discuss the speaking and the writing section of the test. Okay, so the speaking part of the test is 3 parts. Okay, the first part you're going to talk a little bit about you, so it's going to be an interview session. And part 2 of the speaking test will involve you giving a little bit of information about your experience, and the third part will involve you working with a discussion on you giving your opinions, examples, and that's going to be a little bit of a longer session for you. Okay, the interview section will consist of 4 parameters that the examiner will look at in regards to your speaking skills, and they'll be looking at these 4 things: your fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Okay, I've also provided the speaking band descriptor. This is a very clear and concise tool that we use when we practice the speaking section, where we can see what an examiner would look at. So they're looking at fluency and coherence, lexical resources, grammar range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Now, your fluency and coherence basically means, do you speak without pauses? Of course, you should have a few pauses when you're speaking, but are you searching for words? Are you not sure what you want to say when you're speaking? Okay, there's a big difference between you thinking about what you're going to say next and you thinking about what word do you want to use. So that's something that they will look at when they score your speaking part of the exam. Lexical resources basically means, do you use words appropriately? They're looking at vocabulary words. They're looking at paraphrasing appropriately. If you're looking at achieving a band score of 7, if you don't paraphrase, don't expect to get a 7 score. Okay, that's a very critical element here under lexical resources, is paraphrasing in your speaking. And then obviously your grammar and pronunciation are things that they're looking at as well. Are you pronouncing words correctly? Now, everybody has an accent, so it's not about your accent. It's about you pronouncing words such as vowels and consonants correctly in a word, as well as using syllable stress correctly. Okay? Right, so your fluency, as we discussed, will also influence your vocabulary choice, your pronunciation, and your overall grammar, making sure that you're using the words correctly. Okay, some strategies to improve your fluency. If you're finding yourself searching for words, one of the important things to think about during the interview section is to give yourself time to speak. Sometimes we're nervous and we're not sure what we want to say. We don't pause appropriately. So pausing and pacing is really important because pauses can convey meaning. All right. Also, in the longer speaking sections for questions 2 and 3, there you're going to get time to prepare some notes to kind of help you and get you to speak consistently for the time period. All right. It's really important that you practice extending your answers. Okay. Give lots of examples. Give reasons. Even the examiner may ask you some closed questions. You don't want to respond with one-worded answers. So there again, there's an opportunity for you to paraphrase. Well, what is paraphrasing actually? Well, paraphrasing is you taking something and putting it in your own words. that gives you opportunity to showcase your vocabulary knowledge and using it appropriately. As I said before, if you look in the speaking band descriptors to achieve a band score of 7, you really need to paraphrase. Okay, and that speaking band descriptor is available on the internet. You can download it from their website and review all that. I encourage anybody who's going to take the IELTS to go ahead and review that. What are the specific parameters that they're looking at, and what are those components under those particular bands? What are the expectations there? Okay. Your vocabulary words, looking at how well developed are your vocabulary words. Okay, so from a higher level, you're looking at, are you using words that are at a broader range, or are you using very simple words which may not be used correctly? So they're also looking at, are you using words correctly in context? It's really important to practice a lot with context clues. I don't recommend that you memorize vocabulary words. I recommend that you improve your context skills in regards to learning new words. All right. Also, grammar is a component that's really important on this speaking section. Are you using accurate sentences? And we're also looking at a variety, not just a complex, but are you using a variety of sentences? Okay. If your sentences are very simple, it may seem really choppy when you're speaking, and also it may confuse the overall message that you're trying to convey too, because again, complex structures in regards to sentences tend to flow a little bit more smoothly, and they're easier to understand than if you're using a lot of simple sentences which are really choppy and disjointed. Okay, pronunciation. Again, the practice here for pronunciation is focusing on the sounds, not your consonant sounds as well as your vowel sounds. A lot of times consonant sounds are very easily detectable if they're mispronounced. Okay, also, if you're in the habit of using a lot of slang words, you really want to practice not using that. Another common thing that people make mistakes on is using repetitive words consistently throughout. And if you refer to the speaking band descriptor, there will be a section there relating to using words repetitively. It's almost like you're using the words as a filler. Okay. Your rhythm relates to the stress of the syllable in a word. Are you using the syllable stress correctly? Because we do have words that we use as a noun and a verb, and we pronounce them differently. So that is again something that they would look at from the speaking section. And your intonation pattern. Your intonation pattern is basically your highs and your lows when you're speaking. That's also important because when we speak, we convey emotion, we convey meaning through that. Right, so some suggestions on how to get the score that you want. Okay, be fluent, practice your fluency, practice a lot of speaking whenever you get the time. Work on extending your answers, speaking at length. Use a variety of sentence structures when you're speaking. Okay, it's not just about complex grammar, it's also involving using a variety. So you want to look at simple, compound, complex sentences and mixing them appropriately so that your flow is pretty much smooth as you're speaking. Okay, your vocabulary range and your paraphrasing is also very important. Right. And your pausing and pacing is really important here because you really need to think while you're speaking so that you don't have long pauses. All right. It's important that you get some feedback about your strengths and your weaknesses. Okay. talk to somebody who is a native speaker of English. Talk to somebody who can give you some really valuable feedback on your speaking skills. Study, practice, listen to native speakers of English, work on your vocabulary. I would strengthen your context clues in regards to vocabulary, and practice phrases. To get a score of 9, it's important that you use idiomatic language, so get familiar with idioms, do a lot of reading, practice some tests online if possible. Okay, always have a partner to help you through the practice process. Okay, somebody to give you valuable feedback. Don't work alone. It's always good to have a mentor to give you feedback on your speaking skills and to have somebody to speak to. All right, let's go ahead and look at the writing section now. In these essays, we're looking at 2 different tasks, 2 questions. Okay, and here's the minimum requirements, the time that is allotted for that. You need to give a description of a diagram and the process involved for that. The second task is an essay where you give your opinion. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Make sure that you state your case on that. All right, it's pretty similar in regards to speaking if you compare the sections of the test. All right, we're going to be looking at, are you completing the task? Have you answered the questions? It's really important that you refer to the prompt and plan your response. Coherence and cohesion. Does everything fit together okay? Does it make sense? Are you using sentences that are clear and relate to the topic? If you don't read the topic and you're not able to understand the topic, then it's really difficult for your response to have any coherence. And the cohesion is basically the flow of your writing. Does everything fit together? Do you connect ideas? Vocabulary and grammar also. What words are you using? Are you using repetitive words? Are you using a broad range of vocabulary? And your grammar skills. Probably the red flags in regards to grammar are your nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Those are your content words. Those are the most important words in regards to parts of speech. So if you're having difficulty with subject-verb agreement, or you have difficulty with superlative or comparative words, definitely you're going to need to practice those so that those are clear in the speaking and the writing section. Okay, so each essay is given grades in relationship to this parameters that I've already discussed with you. Okay, so we're looking at the task completion. Is the essay long enough? Yes, you need to write either 150 words or 250 words, and it's really mandatory. That's the requirement. You need to fit that. So also they're looking at paragraph formation, connecting ideas. Have you answered the question? You really need to make sure that you understand the question so you can answer the question appropriately. All right. Is the answer accurate for the task 1, where you're asked to look at a chart, interpret the data? So you're basically telling us a summary of what the chart is trying to tell us. And do you support your ideas? In task 2, it's asking you to give opinions, reasons, and examples. That means you need to give reasoning behind that. Okay, for your coherence and cohesion, do you have an introduction? Do you introduce the topic? Also, your conclusion is important. Are the paragraphs, your body paragraphs, clear? Do you have a topic sentence? Do you have supporting details? Transitional words that improves the coherence? Okay, and also that summary in the concluding paragraph, and that's something we often leave out, is the conclusion. Okay, again, we also discussed the vocabulary, the grammar, what is the type of vocabulary and grammar that you use in the writing. It's basically the same kind of expectation in regards to the speaking. We're looking at a higher level of vocabulary and grammar there. All right, make sure you read enough and make sure you've answered the question. And now when you respond, especially in the question number 2, it's good that you paraphrase. Again, that paraphrase is really important. If you're not sure how to paraphrase, do get some help. Contact LearnEx Academy. We can definitely help you with that. Also, make sure that you support your ideas. All right? Oftentimes, we just say something, we give an opinion, but our ideas are not supported. So you need to think and plan, and how are you going to express that? Make sure you're using grammar, which is more complex. Use a variety of sentences, and also your vocabulary words. Don't repeat words. Use synonyms. Understand what are synonyms, and use those accordingly. All right. Make sure you're using paragraphs, okay, and language that kind of connects ideas one to the other. All right. And finally, as a review, make sure that you know what your strengths and weaknesses are. If you're a little bit weak in regards to grammar or pronunciation, fine. Then maybe you might be able to average out your score if you're stronger under fluency and coherence. Okay? So understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. If you're strong in one point, okay, then maybe you don't want to spend too much time practicing that. You might want to focus on your weak points. All right? Stay very focused on what are the things that you're going to study and work on. You really have to know what are the things that you need to focus more on. What are you already good at? Maybe you have difficulties with grammar and you want to improve that. So you need to focus your studies in grammar and maybe work on using a variety of sentences. The vocabulary words that you use are really important in this test. So think of words that you could utilize in your responses. Okay? It's really good practice to go ahead and read some sample essays. If you can get some samples and read through them, look at the different styles of writing that people use. Do a lot of reading. That is the best way to build on your vocabulary. If you come across a word you don't know, practice context clues. Again, if you don't know what context clues are, get in touch with LearnEx Academy. We are ready to help you with that. And obviously practice the test. Remember, the test is timed. Okay, so it's really important that you practice and use time management so that you can complete the tests accordingly. Okay, that pretty much wraps up our discussion about the IELTS speaking and writing parts. If you'd like more information or more help on paraphrasing or some of the things that I already discussed about, feel free to visit www.learnexacademy.com or write to us at care@learnexacademy.com. Feel free to join us in Skype, learnex.tech, or learnex.academy. Thank you.